through the entire process of building a game, and we've gone through quite a bit throughout this course. We've gone through every major feature inside of Unity that you will come across whenever you build your games. So now let's talk about actually building them and letting other people experience them. So building games in Unity is actually very, very simple. If we go up to the top, we can go to File, and we can go to Build Settings. Now under the Build Settings, you're going to have a couple of things. The first thing that you'll need to do is you'll need to tell it what scenes you're actually going to build. So in this case, what we would do is we would go ahead and save out our scene as something that we want to build out. So you could call it something like training area or something like that. So I would go ahead and say add open scene. And so in this case, we're going to be using the training area scene. Now you also have the platform that you want to build to. You can come in and you can choose whichever platform that you want to build to. So if you want to build this for an iOS, you can go ahead and do that. For Android, for Apple TV, Tizen, Xbox One, PS Vita, and PS4. You also have Universal Windows Platform, WebGL, Samsung, and Facebook. It's important to know that many of these platforms you will need to download some sort of plugin or module to be able to access these. So for example, the Universal Windows Platform, they're saying there's no module loaded, but you'll need to go to the download page to actually do that. Now for us, seeing how this is our very first build, I would suggest that we use the PC Mac Linux standalone. In our case, we're going to be using the Windows platform, and then the architecture that we want to use. You could use 86 or 64, meaning 32-bit or 64-bit. Typically, you want to stick with the 64-bit. Now, we can identify that this is a development build, and typically what would happen is whenever we would build this out, it would give us some sort of number, and then we can add in anything to kind of help debug the game itself. In this case, we're okay, so we're just going to leave it unchecked. Now, at this point, you can come in and you can start with your player settings. Now, the player settings are going to bring things up that allow you to adjust the overall quality of your game. Let's go ahead and close this and actually go into the project settings and player settings, and you'll see these open up here in the inspector. And typically in this, you're going to have a couple of things. You have your company name, and then you have your product name. You can change these here if you like. It's totally up to you. And then you can start adding things like an icon and even cursors to show the quality of this, and to actually give it some sort of custom icon that someone can actually click on to open up your game. And then same thing for cursors if you want to change it from this mouse cursor. Now, looking at what we have here, we have the standalone settings, we have our iPhone, iPod, mobile settings, and then we have Android. And we can come in and we can make these changes to these particular settings, but what we're worried about is just the PC, Mac, and Linux standalone. So here's what we're going to determine. We're going to say that the default is going to be full screen, so whenever they play, it is going to be full screen, and they're going to use their native resolution. And then you could also tell it to run in the background. In our case, I'm not going to allow that to happen, so we'll just make sure that that is unchecked there. And then from here, we could say display resolution dialog, and so whenever it starts up, the user can actually choose what resolution they would like to use at the very beginning. And this is really helpful with our games, especially when we do early builds, because we haven't created any sort of options to allow them to change that. They have the ability to have a resizable window if you would like that, but I think we're okay on this. And then you're going to just choose the default full screen mode. So for Mac, it's going to be full screen window with menu. If they're using DirectX 9, full screen window, DX11, full screen mode, full screen window. You could do whatever you like here. Exclusive mode is going to make sure that it goes full screen there, but I like to do full screen window. Visible in the background, and allow full screen switch. And I think everything else is pretty good. You can go ahead and take a look at the supported aspect ratios. Here's where you can start to limit things about like your UI. So if your UI isn't built for these other aspect ratios, you can simply uncheck those. And so in this case, I would say, all right, 16:9 and 16:10 are pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and also uncheck any others in that. And so we'll leave those just as they are. Now here's where you can start adding other icons if you like, and then even a splash image whenever your game starts. And you can start to do logos and things like that. So other than that, you have your other settings. And this is going to get you into some of the things like optimization and all of that. And I think we're pretty good right where we're at on this. Let's go ahead and go up to the build settings one more time. And so we'll go to File, Build Settings. Everything has been set up. You could have multiple scenes in here. You don't have to have just one. But in our case, we only have one. And then we would just simply hit Build. Now you could also do Build and Run, and it's going to give you the exact same options for this. It's just going to run the game immediately after it builds. Now here you're going to need to apply a place for this to save, and in this case I'm just going to put it in the Materials folder. Let's go ahead and create a new folder, and I'm going to call this Game Build, and then inside of this folder we'll give it the name. So we'll call this Unity Fundamentals Build. We're going to save it as an exe, so that way we can execute that, and we're going to hit save. Now you'll have to give this just a little bit of time to go through and start building things out. Now if your lights have not finished baking, it is going to go through that process, and it can take a few minutes to take care of that. Now once all the files are finished compiling and bringing them together, it will create a .exe file in the location that you chose. So to open that file, you can simply go to where the file is located. Make sure that if you were to share this with any friends, you need to include the .exe file along with the data folder that goes along with it. So double click on that exe file, and we'll be met with a dialog box. Here you can choose the screen resolution in which you're going to use. In this case, my screen is 1280 by 720. We're going to use the ultra graphic settings, and then I'm going to select the monitor that I want to play on. In this case, I'm going to use this monitor, and I'm just going to hit play. You'll see that the game starts, showing us the Made with Unity, and then we should actually see the game playing. We can click to move, and that's perfectly fine. And then we'll go ahead and click on our dummy, and you'll see that the dialog box pops up with the text that we have written in that. Now, in this entire course, we have looked at the entire set of tools that are available in Unity. Now, in most of them, we didn't go very deep. However, we do have complementary courses that will go much deeper into all of these different topics. This is just to get you used to using Unity, and then those courses are going to really take you off into the depths of each particular subject. So some of those include Unity Audio Fundamentals, which you will learn at great length on how to use audio, and it's very much in a project style format. Some others will be Unity UI Fundamentals, Unity Animation Fundamentals, and much, much more. So you'll see those in this skill path, and I encourage you to go through those, and by the end of this entire skill path you will know how to use Unity fluently from a tool perspective, and we're continuing to use the Swords and Shovels assets and be ready to see a lot more from this. So thank you very much for joining me in this course, and I'll see you next time.